Hi there, my name is Jocelyn Williams from Neurolly Solutions, and it is an honor to have you with us tonight. We are just pleased to continue our Indie Birth Alliance education series, which is sponsored by the Indie Birth Alliance. The Indie Birth Alliance, also known as the IBA, is a group of birth professionals empowering a healthy birth community through support, service, education, and advocacy. Throughout this summer, we are going to continue with our summer series each Monday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will continue with a variety of guest speakers who either have already spoken or will be speaking about the following topics: breastfeeding support, doula services, fertility coaching, pelvic floor, physical therapy, postpartum care, spinning babies, VBAC, the infant developmental sequence, and more. If you've missed our last three educational series, you are welcome to join us on the Indiana Birth Alliance community Facebook page. That's Indiana Birth Alliance community page. And there you will find the links to our previous recordings that are our previous recordings of our educational series. But tonight, we want to introduce our guest speaker. Our guest speaker is Sally Wiggins. She is a birth and postpartum doula with Best Beginnings Doula Services. In fact, she is the founder of Best Beginnings Doula Services. Sally has 4 daughters and 1 grandson. She works part-time as a home birth assistant and a birth doula at community hospitals here in Indiana. She also owns and runs Best Beginnings Doula Services, LLC. Best Beginnings provides both birth and postpartum doula support and education. Sally's passion is to help moms have their best birth experience through education, physical, and emotional support. She also equips them with the tools and care that gets them off to a great start once they get home. Tonight's presentation is titled "The Struggle is Real," and our topic is the importance of postpartum support. The way the evening will flow is that Sally will present. She will do a presentation. After that, we will talk about the infant developmental sequence, and then we will leave some time for questions and answers with Sally. And then from there, we will wrap up. So why don't we go ahead and begin? Sally, welcome. It is just an honor to have you here with us. Why don't you start with telling us, what are you passionate about? What inspired you to become a postpartum doula and to start your very own business, Best Beginnings Doula Services?
Thank you, Jocelyn. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, and thank you for hosting this education series. Part of my journey in discovering what I wanted to be when I grew up, which didn't happen until just a few years ago when I discovered doula work, one of my things that I figured out was that I enjoy teaching. I homeschooled my 4 daughters, for about 18 years total. So teaching is something that I've been doing for a while. And as a postpartum doula, I get to teach new moms all about their miraculous babies, how to take care of them, how to bond with them, how to help them learn and grow. And I get to teach moms how to discover who they are as a parent as well. I help them trust their instincts and listen to what their baby is telling them, as opposed to trying to follow all the books and the websites and well-meaning family and friends that have all this advice and tell them how they should raise their own baby. I also enjoy taking care of others. And as a postpartum doula, this is what I get to do as well. I know that from my own experience as a new mom, a lot of the time we're on our own taking care of ourselves and a new baby. And it definitely isn't easy, and it's not glamorous. And it never looks like it we see on Facebook or Pinterest or that TV sitcom. We struggle day in, day out, especially in those first few weeks. It is a huge struggle. Anyone who has had a newborn understands completely. And it does get easier with time, but our society doesn't acknowledge that the help of a postpartum doula can make that easier from day one, as opposed to letting you struggle for weeks and just trying to figure it out on your own. So, you know, we can be there from the time that you get home from the hospital instead of, as I said, weeks down the road. I also enjoy taking care of new moms and making their life a little bit easier from the start. I didn't have this as a new mom. My husband is wonderful, but he went to work the same day I got home from the hospital. He went back to work. So yeah, it's just, you know, financially, that's what had to be done. And my mom was 10 minutes away, but she's older, and so she wasn't a whole lot of help. She might have brought me a meal or something that first week, or she did always watch my older children each time I had a successive baby while I was in the hospital. But beyond that, I pretty much was on my own. It was rough. And I joke that the reason that my children are at least 3 years apart is because they weren't good sleepers and they didn't sleep through the night. That's just a part of it, though. I think after reflecting back, that the reason that is that I needed time to feel normal again, to feel like I could handle taking on another child before I even, you know, thought about getting pregnant again. So that's kind of why I'm passionate about helping other moms get the support that they need after having a baby. And the added bonus of being a postpartum doula is I get to interact with all those precious little babies, which I love as well.
I know, I love me some baby. I love those babies too. There's nothing more precious than a brand new baby. So you've mentioned the word postpartum doula. Could you define for us what a postpartum doula is and how that is different than a birth doula? And do you do both? Can you do both? What does that all look like?
I do both. A postpartum doula, so the word doula actually comes from the Greek word, which translates loosely to servant. So as a birth doula, that's someone who would work with a mom during pregnancy to educate her and help get her ready for birth, and then help her during birth and labor. A postpartum doula then, either a lot of people haven't heard of it or don't know, but a postpartum doula is just as important, if not more important, than a birth doula, because we offer that peace of mind that an extra pair of hands as well that can bring once you bring your baby home from the hospital. As a postpartum doula, I help a new family adjust to their roles as parents. We answer the hundreds of questions that you have about your baby. You know, are they eating enough? Are they getting enough to eat? Are they sleeping too much? Are they not sleeping enough? Are they, you know, what are their diapers? Are their diapers, you know, are they having enough? What does their cry mean? Are they crying too much? How do I, you know, those are just some basic things. Anyone who, like I said, has a newborn baby understands the many questions that you have that you don't think about. You know, you think, oh yeah, it's just taking care of a baby. It's, you know, you feed them, you put them to sleep, you change them, and that's it. That's all there is. No, that's not all there is. So there's so much to learn about your baby and the questions and that you need answers to. And yeah, we have Google, but you know, Google's not always that trustworthy. And it's so much more personal to have a doula there who can answer those questions for you, can help guide you in the right way, find the resources that you need if they don't know the answer. We offer practical help as well. So, you know, help with breastfeeding, help with diapering, help with baby wearing, making sure that mom and dad are eating and drinking enough, I mean, that's a huge thing, especially if you're a breastfeeding mom. Your caloric intake it increases greatly, and that, sometimes you're, juggling baby and you don't have enough time to go find yourself a snack. So as a postpartum doula, I make sure that mom has snacks available and has water every time she sits down to breastfeed, that kind of thing. I can help prepare meals, wash bottles if you have baby bottles, if you're not breastfeeding, throw in a load of baby laundry that never seems to end, or spend a little time with an older sibling while, mom's taking care of baby, or if mom needs to take a nap or just wants a shower or wants 10 minutes to just chill and I can, make sure that baby's safe and baby's okay while she does any of those things as well.
So how is a postpartum doula different than a nanny or a housekeeper? And what is the benefit of a postpartum doula? I know you've already begun touching on it, but I was just thinking, okay, if I had, a little bit of extra cash, or maybe I don't even have a little bit of extra cash, but I'm willing to make this sacrifice, right? Make this investment to have a postpartum doula. Why would I do that? How are you different than a nanny or a babysitter, etc.?
Yeah, great question. And a lot of people think that that's basically all that a postpartum doula is, that we're just a glorified babysitter or, a housekeeper or something. But we're not. We look at the family as a whole unit. We're not there for just the baby like a nanny or a babysitter would be. We're not there just to clean the house like a housekeeper would be there. We're there to make sure that the family is working together as a whole, that all the pieces are there, that, mom's getting taken care of, baby's getting taken care of, the house is getting taken care of, the dog is getting taken care of, if that's a priority for you. We're there to help you get into all those new roles that you have, as well as juggle all the old ones that you have as well. Even though we may spend some time taking care of the baby, if mom is resting or taking a shower, it's not our only role. The same goes with helping with an older sibling. We may, like I said, help integrate that child with the new baby and help them not feel so left out. But we're not there to solely take care of an older sibling or older child or entertain them. It's to help the family work better, just by temporarily lifting one responsibility from the new parents. And so as a postpartum doula, I also, like I said, will do some chores, whether it's cleaning up the kitchen, because we all know that when you have a baby, if you manage to find time to make a meal, you definitely don't have time to clean up after that meal, and the dishes are just gonna pile up. And I mean, there's, that happens on a basis when I don't have a baby in the house, let alone when, if you have a newborn, dishes are not top priorities. So I can help with that as well. But that's not going to be my sole focus. I'm not there just to wash the dishes and make sure the kitchen's clean. I'm there to integrate everybody into their new roles in the house and do a little piece of a lot of different jobs and a lot of different roles.
That's great. And I'm just reflecting on when I had my first child, and I wish I would have known about doula support back then. And just kind of reflecting on some of the struggles that I went through, I didn't even recognize that I was going through certain struggles. Like, for example, I didn't really realize that I was going through postpartum depression, because it didn't look like postpartum depression at all. Instead, it looked more like I had all of a sudden this onset of anxiety that I never had before. And I attribute a lot of that anxiety because I had Pitocin that caused a very traumatic experience for me in terms of the pain level. And just being able to care for myself and care for the baby, and thinking, oh my goodness, I still have to care for my husband and my home, and just making that transition, it would have been wonderful to have doula support, a postpartum doula support. So I say all that to then ask, so if you're working with a mom at home and you're seeing signs of postpartum depression or some type of struggle, are you able to support mom and direct her to resources? How do you, and if so, how do you do that in a way that doesn't impose on mom? Like, right, mom might not recognize that she's going through that, but it's important for her safety and the baby's safety that she gets some help or some resources. How do you handle that sort of thing?
Absolutely. Great question, Jocelyn. And let me just say that you're right. I mean, you know, being on, how many births nowadays are induced and or have a Pitocin at some point? There's so many of them, and it definitely can mess with our hormones and all that, which we all know that hormones, our hormone levels are a part of postpartum mood disorders. And yeah, I'm the same way with you. I looking back, I would say that I probably had some form of postpartum depression. But because I was doing everything myself, and I didn't have that help, and I was exhausted, and, you know, and I didn't know what I was doing. So yeah, it's very common. And yes, as a postpartum doula, I am trained to recognize symptoms of postpartum mood disorders. So the way that looks is, like I said, we're trained to recognize symptoms. We spend a lot of time talking with the mom and processing with the mom, letting her, you know, talk about her feelings, talk about her birth, anything that happened that she's struggling with. And that's a huge part of it. Just having someone to talk to and having someone listen, as opposed to having, you know, someone just tell you what you need to do. Because a lot of times, you know, we don't want to tell someone our troubles because we don't want their advice. We just want them to listen. So as a postpartum doula, yeah, that's one of the things that we're trained to do. And some of the ministries that I've done at my church also have trained me. And my degree is actually in social work. So I have a lot of practice with listening skills. So that is a great thing that I can do for moms, just let them process everything that's going on. I'm not there to give them advice, but I am trained to recognize when something may be off. I also give all of my clients that there's a postpartum mood disorder quiz. I give that to them, and I talk to their partner as well and say, you know, because I'm, as a postpartum doula, I'm not there 24/7. So there may be something a piece that I'm missing, that the mom may act differently when I'm there helping than when she's there with her partner. So I talk with the partner as well, and I, you know, tell them the signs to look for and things to look for. And I ask them questions. How do you feel that, you know, mom is doing? Do you think, you know, do you feel she's, you know, getting enough sleep? Do you feel she's, you know, overworked? And do you think she's, you know, feeling a lot of anxiety? Is she experiencing some of these things? So it's a group effort. And then, you know, if me or the partner feels that there's something, we definitely, both of us will talk with the mom and see how she feels about it and thinks about it. If it's an emergency type situation where she's going to harm herself or her child, obviously we're, going to get immediate help. But in anything other than an emergency type of situation, we're going to work together as that unit and get any kind of help that mom might be willing to do.
That's awesome that you provide that level of support for mom, because for some of us, it's also hard to just ask for support. It's hard to ask for help. It's even hard to know that we need support or that we actually need help, because we think, oh, this is just the normal part of being a mom, right? Or a new mom, and we don't know what normal is. So whatever comes our way, we think is normal. And it's just wonderful to have a postpartum doula there to help us to reflect, help us to kind of recognize what is normal, what is typical, what is not normal, and what can I do about this. So what makes it difficult? What do you think makes it difficult to ask for help?
That's a good question, and I have thoughts about it, and I've talked to other postpartum doulas and kind of asked them about it too, what their opinions are. And a lot of it just comes down to our society. Honestly, in other countries, postpartum period is considered almost sacred and is treated as a special time for the mother to rest, heal, and bond with her baby. A lot of times new moms will move back in with their parents, so they don't have to concern themselves with taking care of a house, taking care of a husband. They don't have that. Other countries have what they call a confinement period, where the new mom actually stays in bed for an extended period of time. She's not allowed to get up and do anything. I mean, she can go to the bathroom, obviously, and shower, but and she has family members, female family members and friends that come and feed her and give her daily massages. I mean, who would not love to have a daily massage, right? They give, prepare herbal baths for mom. They make sure that she's taken care of and that she heals. We don't have that in this society. We're expected to be super mom. We're expected to be back to normal, whatever that may be, our pre-pregnancy normal within days of having a baby. I mean, and how many times, have you heard moms talk about, oh, I was in labor for 36 hours. And I mean, do you really think you're going to be back to normal 2 days after being up for 36 hours in labor? No, it doesn't happen. But that's, our society, we tell women that you can do it all. You can juggle being a mom, you can juggle going to work, you can juggle taking care of your house. And so we think that that's just what's expected, that we need to do that. And it's not normal based on other societies. It's not how cultures started, and it's definitely not healthy for women. So we struggle because we definitely need help, but we're told that we shouldn't ask for it. We shouldn't need it, that we don't, that we can't ask for it. And because we've, maybe up to the point of having a child, that, we have been able to do everything by ourselves. We've been very self-sufficient, that we think that this new role shouldn't be a problem, but it's not something you've ever done before. And yet we're expected to know how to do it exactly the perfect and be back to ourselves and normal before, in a week's time. And it's just not possible. So we need to get this image of super mom and whatever out of our minds she doesn't exist. I mean, nobody is perfect. No one does everything perfectly, and at least not without a price. I mean, usually it's your mental health, which leads to those postpartum mood disorders that we talked about, or your physical health, you know, or both. And so we need to get over ourselves, I guess, and our society needs to understand that there was a reason that we had these you know, these periods of time long ago when women, and still in other countries, where women were taken care of. We need that. We need to get that back. We've gone so far away from it, and it's just, it's not healthy.
So I'm big on prevention. I don't like pain. I don't like struggle. If I can make it easier for myself and easier for somebody else, I am happy to give them that information. So thinking back, again, reflecting on when I was expecting my first child and just kind of shocked. I remember even being shocked at when my baby was born, because I wasn't prepared really even how an infant newborn would look. And I am, you know, up to that point, I was an educator. I worked with babies, but I had never seen a brand new infant newborn. And even that surprised me. And I think it was probably more so because of that Pitocin that I was heightened. But thinking back on that, there were just some things that I did to prepare my body for birth. I went to Lamaze class, we did some exercises, I did a lot of healthy eating, and I felt like I was physically prepared to have my baby. But I don't know that I really took the time to prepare for that postpartum period. And so looking back now, could you maybe give us some tips? Like if I was that young mom way back when, pregnant, what could I have done to better prepare for the postpartum period? And what could I expecting or planning, those may not, there are some with us that are not yet expecting but are planning in the future to have a baby. How can they best prepare for that postpartum period? And I know we can't prevent necessarily postpartum depression. For some of us, that's just part of the process. But what could I do to set myself up to reduce the potential to have postpartum depression?
Two things that come to mind. One obviously is setting up support. Even if you don't end up using it, knowing that, you know, having a lactation consultant that you can get in touch with in case you have breastfeeding issues, having whether it's a postpartum doula come in and help you with baby care and getting the house ready, or if you would rather, you know, have a housekeeper come once a week, you know, if that would be a help to you, having those resources and that support lined up, have a friend set up a meal train for you. If like I said, if a postpartum doula, because, you know, there's some of us I know that can't afford a postpartum doula, you know, just there are other ways, other resources that you can use to get that support that you need. But having those resources is one definitely key point, because like you said, you do all this preparation for birth, but you're not preparing for what happens afterwards. And the other thing is kind of, it's more of a mindset thing, because when we have a baby, you know, everyone is focused on the fact that, you know, you have this wonderful, beautiful, you know, brand new baby, and it's so exciting, and you should be happy. But what we don't think about is the losses. And by that, I mean, we lose our pre-pregnancy body. Sometimes we don't ever get that back. You have a loss of income sometimes if you were a two-family family and now there's only one of you working. Even if you are planning on going back to work and you're on maternity leave, still there's, you know, some maternity leaves are definitely better than others, but you may not have a paid maternity leave. So you may have a little bit of loss of income. Definitely a loss of sleep. That is a huge one. And I know, you know, everyone's like, oh yeah, we know that we're not going to get much sleep and stuff. You say that, but when you're actually only getting like 30 minutes of sleep in between feeding, sometimes you don't actually realize how that catches up to you so quickly. So loss of sleep is a huge one that then affects your mood and everything else like that, which is a whole nother, like leads back into the postpartum mood disorders as well. Your loss of freedom. I know we don't think about it, but I mean, you obviously you can't do everything that you used to do when you have a new baby. So there's just a bunch of losses that we don't think about, that we don't prepare for. And even, I mean, and changes. I mean, you know, with any kind of depression, I mean, we talk a lot about, you know, changes. What are the top like 3 things that can lead to depression, whether it's, you know, a change in finances, whether it's a change in job status, whether it's a change in marital, you know, a divorce or a death, or those kinds of things. Well, a new baby is in one of those too, because there's a lot of changes. There's a lot of losses and there's a lot of changes, and there's a whole role change as well. You're no longer, you know, part of the husband, wife, possibly. You're now a family. You're no longer just a woman. You're a mother now too. So that's a whole new role that we need to wrap our heads around, and that sometimes we don't. I mean, we say, yeah, we're, you think about it, and you know, I'm having a baby, I'm going to be a mom, but when the baby's actually there, it's a little bit different. Your mindset is a little bit different, and you have this whole, you know, responsibilities that you need to take on. And so kind of just thinking about those things and thinking about those losses and preparing for how you might deal with those ahead of time before the baby actually gets there will go a long way towards helping you. I'm not going to say avoid a postpartum mood disorder, because there's things you can do, but part of that is also genetics, and part of it's, you know, if you are dealing with depression and anxiety and those kinds of things before you even get pregnant, you know, chances are that you're are increased to have issues afterwards as well. So I'm not going to say all these things are going to prevent you from ever having a postpartum mood disorder, but yes, definitely having support, having someone that you can talk to and discuss all these things with ahead of time, and prepare yourselves for mentally all the changes and the losses and everything that's going to happen after baby comes are going to go a long way towards helping.
That's really good. I never thought about that before. And you know, hindsight is 20/20, right? So now I have 5 kids, and I tend to mentally prepare, you know, for a lot of things. And when I was a lot younger, and, you know, it was just me and my husband, and we had all this freedom, and it was just going to be exciting and new, and so I didn't even think that there was going to be a loss, right? I was just looking at all the wonderful, great things that were before me. And so I didn't necessarily prepare for those losses. And I think if I would have, that may have helped. But with that said, yes, there are losses, but once you process those and get to that phase and realize this is a new beginning and a new life, and there's so many wonderful things ahead. And yes, the struggle is real, and yes, there are losses, but you know, those losses are going to be replaced with a lot more beauty and a lot more gains. And so, but being fair to yourself to recognize both and to look at both um, honestly, right? And to be able to reflect with someone like a doula is just very wise. I love that. Thank you. And you know, everything that you have shared tonight just even makes me think, wow, you know, some mamas just they make this look so easy, right? But the struggle is real.
It is.
Right? The struggle is real. And so thank you for sharing so much great information with us. And for those of you who joined in a few minutes later than our start time, we just want to take a moment to recognize you and to welcome you and to let you know that you've been listening to Sally Wiggins. Sally Wiggins is a postpartum doula. She is a doula, but she's also a postpartum doula. And she has been speaking with us about the struggle is real and just really helping us to prepare for that postpartum season in our lives and just sharing why it is so helpful to have a postpartum doula. The way our evening has been set up was to have Sally speak, and then I'll take a few moments to talk about the infant developmental sequence. And in just a few minutes, we're going to, after the infant developmental sequence, we are going to have time for questions with Sally. And so I've already seen a question come through our chat room, so I just want to bring your attention there. If you have any questions that you personally want to ask Sally, you can feel free to do that. And if you want to, we're a smaller group tonight. If you feel like, well, this is a personal question and you just want to private message me, you can do that. And I will, if it comes through as a private question, a private message, I will not share your name. I will just present the question. So Sally, we have talked about what is the difference between a postpartum doula and a doula. We've talked about the struggle being real. We've talked about why we need a postpartum doula and the support is necessary. And I just also want to take a moment to acknowledge that, you know, we are still in the midst of COVID-19. And so having support now more than ever is so crucial, especially with our mamas being isolated. We have some mamas that we know they don't get out with their babies at all. And so their support system is through Sally. Sally offers an online postpartum doula support webinar on, I believe it's a weekly basis, where these mamas come together and they talk and they have a moment of time to socialize and process what they're going through and give each other advice. It's a very beautiful thing. So I encourage you, if you are thinking about having a baby, if you're expecting, or if you have a brand new baby, Sally is a great resource for you. And so now we just want to transition here. We talked about having a baby, postpartum. Now we have this baby in our home. And Sally, what is some advice, just, you know, quick tips once the baby's born and with us, what are some important steps that we need to take to care for our babies? So we talked about caring for ourselves. Now what are we going to do for baby?
Well, I don't like to, I mean, obviously there are, you know, certain safety guidelines that we need to do to take care of our baby. But as a postpartum doula, that's one of the things I encourage moms to, within safe guidelines, to find their own way on taking care of baby. Yes, there are, you know, I can give you a whole list of this is, you know, what you know, this is what you need to do. And I mean, anyone, you know, as I said, your mom, your neighbor, your sister, whatever, are going to give you advice on how to take care of your baby. As a postpartum doula, I like to help moms find their own way. Yes, I have soothing techniques. Yes, I have breastfeeding techniques. Yes, I have diapering techniques and ways to help you put your baby to sleep. But it all comes down to you have to decide what's best for you and your baby. I give suggestions, and then it's up to you whether you want to take them or whether you don't. As I said, it's all within safe guidelines, but it doesn't matter to me if you're bottle feeding. It doesn't matter to me if you're breastfeeding. Yes, there's some that I feel are better than others, but it's your choice. It doesn't matter if you want to co-sleep with your baby. I can give you safe ways to do that. Or if you want your baby in a bassinet, I can, so there's a lot of things that I can help you with, but as it's going to come down to what is best for you and your family. And as I'm working with you in your home as a postpartum doula, I'm going to have a little bit of an advantage on helping you, guide you to what to find the right way for you, as opposed to your neighbor across the street who's like, oh, well, this is how I did it. This is how you should do it, because they don't know what's going on in your home. I'm going to be in your home. I'm going to be watching you interact with your new little one. And based on that, I can help you find the ways that are best going to be what fits in with the way that you want to parent. Oh.
There you go. Thank you so much for sharing tonight. I love the information you have shared. And we're going to transition now to talk a little bit about the infant developmental sequence. And then we'll come back to Sally and present some questions to us. And we do have questions coming into our chat room. And so let's take a minute to talk about the infant developmental sequence. This is one way to kind of help your baby. And we'll talk about that here now. And so what I'm going to do to present about the infant developmental sequence is I'm just going to share my screen and do a quick little presentation. So just give me a moment here as I do that. All righty. Technology is just so much fun. Sometimes it just works perfectly just the way you want it to, and other days it just takes an extra moment. Thank you for your patience. We are about to begin here. Okay, so can everyone see that? Are we all good to go? All righty. So, thank you again for being with us tonight. And we'd just like to take a moment to introduce the infant developmental sequence to you. My name is Jocelyn Williams. I am the host of the IBA 2020 Summer Education Series. I am also the founder and director of Neurolly Solutions. And Neurolly provides a movement-based educational approach to equipping the infant brain for life. And just like we can't make any promises, right? We can't promise that if you follow Sally's, 3-step plan that we can prevent, postpartum depression or anxiety disorder, etc. But what we can do, what Sally has done today, is kind of set you up with some good tools and techniques to reduce the potential for that. And so what I'd like to do today is just kind of talk through the infant developmental sequence. And while it's not, 100% guarantee, this is definitely an effective way to help equip your baby's brain so that they can be prepared for life. This is an educational approach, okay? So the infant developmental sequence is what every human infant was designed to go through, okay? And what the infant developmental sequence does is it helps to shore up and prepare the foundational levels of the brain. So let's think about you, when your baby is first born, they're going to have a hand, right? But they're not necessarily going to be able to use that hand to pick up food and eat when they're first born. No, they don't have access to their full hand yet. Likewise, their brain is developing one level at a time, one step at a time. And so they don't have access to the walking, talking, thinking part of their brain yet. So what they need to go through is the infant developmental sequence, because it helps to prepare a nice, strong foundation for their walking, talking, thinking part of their brain, okay? The process of the infant developmental sequence it's really pretty simple. In fact, I like to say it is as simple as A, B, and C. However, what's important to note is that the infant developmental sequence really needs to occur before the baby starts walking. They need to go through this process before the baby begins to walk. So let's begin with A. From birth, infants need to be on their tummies approximately 50% of a 24-hour period, and we like to call this tummy all the time. Tummy all the time will lead to tummy crawling, which includes the belly button being flat on the ground and the baby moving forward. And this form of movement is so similar to an army crawl. Not exactly, but very similar. Many of our babies are missing this vital stage. And this vital stage of development is all connected with things like emotional regulation. So many of the older clients that I work with struggle with anxiety, or they have a retained startle reflex. So they might hear something like a vacuum cleaner and they'll jump out of their skin, right? But why is that? That's because babies are born with reflexes, and those reflexes are designed to integrate. In other words, the reflexes need to go away, right? So when a baby's first born, you know, you touch their little cheek, what are they gonna do? Immediately, they're gonna start sucking, right? You make a noise, they're gonna startle. These are just reflexes, but they should not be there for the rest of their lives. If the reflexes are retained, later on, the older kids struggle. And so one important stage that our babies need to go through is belly button flat on the ground, tummy crawling, okay? And here's a little tip. All your baby needs is a onesie and a safe floor to crawl on. They don't need gloves. They don't need little things on their feet, little booties on their feet. They shouldn't be in pajamas where their feet are all covered up. It looks cute and it's a great marketing plan, but they really don't need it. What they need is to be on the floor with their belly flat down and allowing their bodies to experience sensory input, okay? So the next step is C. At approximately 6 to 12 months, babies need an ample amount of time to creep on their hands and knees. Now notice the position of the baby. The baby is up on all fours and the belly button is no longer touching the ground. Babies should continue creeping until their creep has developed into an efficient cross-lateral movement. Why? This part of the brain that is now developing is called the midbrain level. And it's sort of like your pre-academics for infants. If there is such a thing, this part of the brain that's developing is helping, is responsible for things like balance, regulation, and coordination. So, and filtering. So for example, let's talk about filtering. If a baby goes through their developmental sequence, gets enough time on their hands and knees, creeping, and there's other components. It's not the only thing. This is just a major component of the infant developmental sequence. I can talk about this for 2 hours. I'm just giving you a quick little, glimpses here. So if the baby is allowed to go through their infant developmental sequence, when they're older, we find that these babies can filter out things like noise. So if I have a child that's sitting down trying to do learning, trying to receive their education and to learn, and they're distracted by everything around them, that's probably because their auditory system hasn't been fully integrated and they can't filter, you know, the extraneous sounds out. And so we like our babies to go through this process so that they can develop the ability to filter out sounds later on in life. Now, when an infant engages in the developmental sequence, we like to say they are given equal access and opportunity to be equipped for life. Here are just a few, a few examples. There are many more. I've done presentations on this on a full day workshop, okay? This is just a drop in the bucket. Here's some examples. One, a baby who's well bonded. That's so vital. If they're well bonded with their primary caretaker, this will help them later on to be socially and emotionally equipped to have healthy peer interactions, okay? This even affects even later than that, it affects their learning. A student who is able to learn well, okay? And then finally, an adult who has the strength to make a positive global impact, okay? So a quick summary, the developmental sequence for infants is as simple as A, B, and C, but they need to go through this process. They need to have tummy all the time. They need to crawl with their belly flat on the ground. They need to then move to hands and knees creeping, and they need to do all of that before they start walking. And again, there are other components such as infant patterns and sensory input, and we'll leave that for another time. Okay, so in the developmental sequence is, I want to make a note that it's not a man-made program. It is a process that was designed, again, to equip the brain for life. At Neurolly, we work with infants, we work with children, students, and even adults, okay? Our process is super simple. We try to keep it as simple as possible because we know life is tough, okay? One, we set up a video assessment or an in-person assessment with a developmental consultant, the baby and the primary caretaker. We then, after we have that consultation, we do a review of the results with the primary caretaker, and then you are provided training in the elements of the developmental sequence that the baby needs, okay? Then finally, the primary caretaker will be given a daily movement plan and support protocols to complete the infant developmental sequence. Okay, I'm realizing, I don't know if you're able to see my full screen. How, is that better there? Okay. For older children, students, and adults, we replicate the developmental sequence, and this pathway is called neurodevelopmental movement, and it's based on neuroplasticity. So when given the right triggers, the brain is able to change. In other words, there is hope for our children, our students, and adults. There is a second chance. So to learn more about the infant developmental sequence or neurodevelopmental movement, you can feel free to contact me. My name is Jocelyn Williams, and my phone number is 317-936-6797. You can also contact me at jwilliams@nsibrain.com or on social media at Neurolly Solutions. So we're going to stop sharing the screen now, and we're going to come back over to you. And I apologize, I didn't realize that my screen was not working there until the very end. So I apologize about that. But let's go ahead and move on. And I probably should turn my video back on. Here I am. All right. So we have had a full evening. We've talked about what a doula is, a postpartum doula is, providing support to mom, postpartum support to her, how to prevent. We can't guarantee anything, but at least we shared a few things that we could do to help prevent even something like postpartum depression. And then we just finished talking a little bit about how we can provide support to baby. And so we want to bring this all together and use our last few moments to answer any questions that you might have. So let's begin with the questions that came through on our live chat. All right, so first question. Hi, Sally. How do you find that you are typically relaying education about postpartum to clients? Do you get the opportunity to educate prenatally, often, or later? How does that education look in addition to the support you provide?
Good question, Jessie. So it depends. If I am also their birth doula, then yes, I start talking start giving them some postpartum information. Not so much, I mean, a little bit at prenatals, but then once they've had the baby, and kind of give them a little bit of information before I leave the hospital, and then on a postpartum follow-up as their birth doula, then I'm going to give them a lot more postpartum information. And then I give some of it, like I said, in person. I do some through email. And if they hire me as a postpartum doula as well, obviously then I'm going to educate them that way. If they don't hire me during, and then, so if they hire me as a postpartum doula, it depends. Some of them will hire me before they have the baby. And then we kind of just talk about, what they think their needs are going to be. And then kind of each visit then, so we'll set up, when, like if they want me to be there when they get home from the hospital, or if they want me within that first week, whatever day they do, as I go there for the first shift or every shift, as I go in and I wash my hands and I kind of assess what I think needs to be done. And then I ask the mom, what are your 3 top goals or things that you want me to accomplish while I'm here? Whether it's she wants to shower, she needs food, whether she wants the kitchen cleaned up, that kind of thing. So education as I'm at their house happens, all the time. And part of it just depends on how I'm getting the information to them, depends upon whether they hire me before birth or after birth, and if I'm also their birth doula as well. So it can look different depending on the situation. As much as I can, I like to educate prenatally, but I don't always get that opportunity.
Okay. Here's another question from Jessie. During my birth doula work, I've noticed that visitors during the first few weeks mainly seem to be there to hold the baby. I have started giving out some handouts to my clients, letting them know it's okay to expect anyone who is visiting to contribute with a small chore, bringing in meals, etc. when they come. Do you have any other tips or tricks for those who provide labor and birth support to help set our clients up for success?
Absolutely, what you're doing is great. Yeah, I always tell my birth clients that, like, get a little note to put on their front door, or if people are with COVID, it's hard to tell if people are going to actually be coming into their house. If people are coming into their house, it could be on their refrigerator or whatever. of the things that they want done. And yes, that I always tell my clients that the price for baby holding is that they have to do something for mom or dad, a chore or bring food. And I set them up with that early on and say, this is what's going to happen, because otherwise, the support is not going to be there. And yeah, they're just going to be there to hold the baby. And the other thing to set your clients up for success is just being sure to talk to them about possible support and resources that they might need. Maybe giving them a list of whether it's lactation consultants, whether it's dog walkers, whether it's places to find a meal train, or I mean obviously now so many people are using Grubhub and those kinds of things to order food anyway. The food isn't always that big of a deal, that piece right now. But I mean, definitely, give them resources for postpartum doulas if that's something, because since COVID, we have lost a lot of in-person support. Some of the hospitals did have postpartum support groups and those kinds of things, or even, breastfeeding clinics where moms could go to. We've lost a lot of that because of COVID, and a lot of people are not picking up things virtually. I mean, like the La Leche League that meets close by me, she has not been meeting through this whole time because she's had other family obligations, and she just hasn't been able to even do virtual. So it definitely is important that they at least know they can call you to find a resource if that's what they need. And I mean, that's kind of the best advice I can give you, is just try to give them the resources that you can, and know that they can, and be a resource for them as well, that they can call you in the future if they need to.
And, I do want to point out that having a doula is not only for the rich and famous, right? There are ways to make this affordable. For example, for, your bridal gift registry, instead of asking for lots of containers, like, swings and bouncy seats and things that the baby really doesn't need, because they really should be on their bellies and doing lots of tummy time and having lots of movement, use that, and said, hey, can I have a gift certificate for a doula service? And that's something you can put on your baby gift registry. I know lots of churches are a great resource, and community groups are resources. I know that I think this community provides doula services at a more affordable rate for clients if they can't access a private doula. Is that a possibility?
As for a birth doula, the community does have a kind of it's not a scholarship program, but they do have a program set up for someone who can't afford a birth doula, that there are funds available to pay for that.
That's awesome. All right. Well, it's been a great evening. We have enjoyed hearing from you, Sally. In the chat here, you will find Sally's contact information. Sally is the founder and owner of Best Beginnings Doula Services, and you can reach her at bestbeginningdoula.com or at 317-339-1513, or Sally Wig, WIG 44, sallywig44@gmail.com. I'd also like to take this time to invite you to our next webinar, which will be held next week at the same time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that will be next Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And our guest speakers will be Amy Robinson and Julia Powden from Restore Your Core. And the title of that event is Pelvic Physical Therapy. What is it and why all moms need an assessment. And the topic will be Certified Pelvic Physical Therapist will explain the many issues moms face during pregnancy and the postpartum period and how certified pelvic physical therapists can help. And for those of you who are with us tonight, you can click on the link to register now. Registration is open. For those of you who are listening to this recording, you can go to Eventbrite and just type in Indie Birth Alliance Education Series, and you will be able to register there. Or you can find us on Facebook at Indie Birth Alliance Community. That's Indie Birth Alliance Community on Facebook. Thank you for a lovely evening. My name is Jocelyn Williams. I have been your host for the evening. I am the owner and founder of Neurolly Solutions, and you are welcome to contact me as well. My contact information is 317-936-6797. You could find me on neurolly.com or at jwilliams@nsibrain.com. It's been a lovely evening. We look forward to next week's webinar. Have a good night.
Good night. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Sally.